You're in a secret lab. It's dark and you've spent far too long boiling, well, gallons of human urine. The smell is something you'll never forget. The work is brutal, and those around you are pretty sure you've lost your mind. But you're not a madman, you're an alchemist, and you're on the verge of a discovery that will change science forever. Even though you were trying to create the Philosopher's Stone, you end up discovering the first element to be isolated since antiquity. This is the story of Phosphorus. Hello and welcome to Meet the Elements, the series where I tell the stories of humanity through the lens of the periodic table. Phosphorus is one of those elements that you probably don't think about, but without it, our own biology would be drastically affected. It has a few distinct allotropes, different molecular structures of the same element, the most prevalent being white phosphorus and red phosphorus. Red phosphorus is reasonably stable at ambient conditions, but white phosphorus tends to give off a faint green glow and will readily ignite when exposed to air. Phosphorus's origin starts in 1669 in Hamburg, Germany. This was the age of alchemy, and a time when science, magic, and philosophy were still tangled together. The obsessive search for the Philosopher's Stone led to countless failed experiments, but it also accidentally laid the groundwork for modern chemistry. If you want to know more about alchemy, check out my video about alchemy's history. But in one of those dimly lit labs, an alchemist was about to stumble onto a discovery arguably more important than gold. His name was Hennig Brand, and he would be the one to discover phosphorus. This element forms the backbone of our DNA, and it's key to how our bodies use energy. Brand's quest wouldn't lead him to riches, but it did land him immortalized in scientific history. To understand Hennig Brand, you have to think like a 17th century alchemist. They weren't all charlatans, they were proto-chemists who believed they could crack the secret code to understand the nature of matter. This is where Brand's very strange choice of ingredient comes in: human urine. To an alchemist, the logic was actually rather simple. Urine was golden colored, so it must bear some connection to gold. Also, rather importantly, it came from the human body, so this golden liquid must also hold some vital life essence. Brand, being bankrolled by the familial wealth of his wife, became obsessed with this idea. He was determined to be the one to finally discover the Philosopher's Stone, or at least extract some gold in the process. He ended up using 1,500 gallons of human urine in this experiment. With the urine collected, Brand let it rot and putrefy, a step later determined to be unnecessary. But once the urine was good and foul, Brand spent endless hours over a furnace, boiling the liquid down until all that remained was a thick, black, tar-like syrup. For the final step, he mixed this paste with sand, loaded it into a glass retort, and heated it with the most intense fire his furnace could create. Vapors filled the glass, and he watched, hoping the fabled Philosopher's Stone would condense in the cool neck of the retort. As the furnace cooled, Brand peered into the vessel. What he saw was a waxy, whitish gunk. As his eyes adjusted to the dark, Brand saw something impossible. The waxy substance was glowing. It emitted a pale greenish light all on its own, a cold fire that gave off no heat. He had failed to create the Philosopher's Stone, but he had captured light in a bottle. Brand named this waxy solid Phosphorus, from the Greek for light bearer. He was the first person recorded as discovering an element, even if the modern concept of an element was still about a century away. One of phosphorus's most noteworthy applications is in matches. Some of you might know this, but the match was actually invented after the lighter, the first lighter being created in 1823, and the first match coming into being in 1826. The first phosphorus matches, known as lucifer matches or just lucifers, used white phosphorus in the match head. This proved to be a rather big problem. Like I said earlier, white phosphorus is incredibly volatile and will ignite when exposed to air. Even worse, white phosphorus is rather toxic, meaning workers in match factories develop a condition known as phossy jaw, a necrosis that would rot away the jawbone. The development that made matches safe was the appropriately named safety match, which kept the key ingredients separate. The head of a modern match doesn't contain phosphorus. It's made from an oxidizing agent, usually potassium chlorate, mixed with sulfur. The phosphorus is on the striking strip on a matchbox. The reddish-brown surface is made of red phosphorus, the much more stable allotrope of the element, along with some sort of abrasive to create friction. When you strike a match, there is a chemical chain reaction that happens in an instant. The friction generates a tiny hotspot, which is enough to turn a microscopic amount of the stable red phosphorus into highly reactive white phosphorus vapor. That vapor ignites in the air, and that tiny flare provides the energy to ignite the sulfur in the match head, which also decomposes the potassium chlorate releasing a burst of oxygen, further fueling the flame, which then ignites the wood of the matchstick. The journey of phosphorus from a glowing curiosity to the spark of a match is already pretty incredible, but its real importance goes much deeper. Hennig Brand had no way of knowing it, but the element he'd found wasn't a chemical oddity. It was one of the fundamental building blocks of life. Every single living thing on this planet, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, depends on phosphorus. It forms the very backbone of our genetic code. The long, twisting ladders of DNA and RNA are held together by a chain of phosphate groups. Without phosphorus, the blueprint of life couldn't exist. It's also the key to biological energy. The molecule adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, is the currency of energy in every cell in your body. Every time you move, think, or your heart beats, you're spending ATP. Life at the chemical level is a constant cycle of creating and breaking these phosphate bonds. It's no exaggeration to say that without phosphorus, there is no life. So where do we get phosphorus today? Well, thankfully, we don't have to get it from boiling metric tons of urine. In the 19th century, scientists found it in bone ash, and later in mineral deposits of phosphates. Today, elemental phosphorus is made on an industrial scale by heating phosphate-containing rocks in huge furnaces. The single biggest use for elemental phosphorus in the modern age is fertilizer. Modern agriculture, which feeds billions of people, would be largely impossible without it. But phosphorus shows up everywhere. Phosphates are used in soft drinks and processed foods as flavor enhancers or preservatives, and electric vehicles use lithium iron phosphate batteries. Now let's go back to that dark 17th century lab one last time, to Hennig Brand, engulfed in the smell of festering urine, staring at a substance that glowed with a ghostly light. He was searching for the legendary Philosopher's Stone, but he never found it. Instead, he found something infinitely more important. He found the first new element to be discovered since antiquity. His bizarre, obsessive quest marked a pivotal moment, a turning point where the mystical art of alchemy began its slow transformation into the science of chemistry. Brand's discovery proved that the world contained fundamental substances that were still unknown, and that they could be captured and studied. The journey of phosphorus is really the story of science itself. It's a journey that starts in a foul-smelling lab and ends in our own DNA. It's the story of a cold fire that now ignites the matches we use to light the way. Brand's strange discovery is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs aren't found when you're looking for them. They're found in the unexpected results, the failed experiments, and in the mysterious, beautiful glow that sometimes appears in the dark. Thanks for watching. I love the story of Brand boiling gallons and gallons of urine. It's just such an absurd image to me. But now I want to hear from you. Is there something about phosphorus I left out? Or maybe you have a question that I could answer. Let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, leave a suggestion for the next element you want to see me cover. And if you want to hear more stories about the elements of the periodic table, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode of Meet the Elements.